Good morning and welcome to today's post-Earth Day edition of Bob's Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Bob Bednarz. Today I'm happy to have our guest presenter as John G. Mathers. He's a business advisor and personal coach with Evo Associates in Mill Valley, California. Over 4 decades, he's worked with hundreds of companies and their management team, and as well as thousands of team leaders and individual contributors. The focus of John's work has been on enhancing team and individual performance, which equates to workplace equity and corporate sustainability. Today, John will speak on the climate crisis, its particular economic realities, and the various solutions any group can undertake. But most of all, John will speak to the timely need for all of us to step up to address this existential crisis for our families, our communities, and those who, by circumstance, are less fortunate. So, John, I will now turn it over to you.
Great. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen and go back to the beginning of the presentation. And I'd want to remember, did I turn on the sound? This is something that I always forget to do, is turn on the sound. The sound is on. And okay, so I'm happy to be with you today. As I said, if you feel like you have a question, stop me and I'll answer it. I've got a lot of material here and would love to go through all of it, but I'm happy to have discussions since it's a small group. So I want to talk about this existential crisis, but I want to look at it from the economic standpoint. What is really holding us back from actually making progress? But first, what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at my middle name, which is Grinnell. I was named after my grandfather and my great uncle, George Bird Grinnell. And if you don't know who he was the founder of the Audubon Society and father of Glacier National Park. And he inspired me, along with many others, through the Boone and Crockett Club he founded with Teddy Roosevelt. So it's not surprising that the environment has always been an important part of my life. Grinnell had a glacier named after him in Glacier National Park, and it's beautiful. Here it is in 1920 and 2013. And here it is today. Clearly, something is missing. It used to go almost all the way down to that last lake down there. So why am I interested in addressing climate change? I want my kids and their kids to have a world that's not threatened with extinction. So let's get into it. I know many of you are very aware of the climate crisis, and obviously this week has been a special focus on it. But I want to go through some of the basics and then come back to the economics. So this is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last Apollo mission, and it changed the way humanity thought about our common home. It's called the Blue Marble, and it reminds us that we're all connected and that our actions have an impact on our planet. But let me be really clear. Our blue marble, our Mother Earth, is compensating perfectly to sustain herself. Every change in our climate and environment happens within her perfect equilibrium. She has been in balance for millions of years, and she'll be in balance for millions to come. So what's the problem? Perhaps we, human beings, are the ones that are out of balance. We, not our mother, are at an existential tipping point where we could all go out, or we could all bring back Mother Nature. So we're putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into our atmosphere every day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide, is building up and it's trapping heat. We know there are many sources of human-caused global warming, including a quarter that comes from power production, a quarter from food, agriculture, and land, a fifth from industry, a sixth from transportation, and then there's also building and other issues. We're heading for an increase of 4.7 degrees Celsius by 2100. That's the current high is 58 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning we're going to 66 degrees. But think about it, 5-degree difference from today's temperature on the downside represents the ice age, and on the upside represents overwhelming flooding. So for the last 10,000 years, our average temperatures have provided a rather dull roller coaster ride. But with the extreme heating of our planet, in just the last century, we as human beings are definitely headed for extinction. So we have to change. But we have to make the choices now to transition to a sustainable world. We're moving as fast as the crisis demands, maybe not, but there are economic considerations that we have to address. Every kind of climate related issue is on the rise. We see them in almost every aspect of our lives right now. And in fact, 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured with instruments have happened since 2001. The 5 hottest of all have been the last 5 years. And 2020 has now joined the top 5. All this extra heat is being absorbed by the Earth, and 93% of it is collected in the oceans. The heat is changing the oceans, impacting habitats and fishing, and creating storms that are stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat has occurred in the last 20 years. And here's what's happening in recent years with ocean heat wave days. And of course, there's Glacier. Here's a glacier in southwest Greenland in the summer of 1935. It shows glacial ice covering the fjord walls. The second photo is the same glacier almost completely melted by 2013, not even a century later due to rising temperature. NASA has precisely measured the decline in mass of ice in both Greenland and Antarctica. All of this extra melting is raising sea levels worldwide. And we know the sea level is rising, is on its way. Mitigation will significantly cost us in terms of money and lives. Here's what it looks like in New York at 100 billion, Tokyo 160 billion, Rio 150 billion, and London 300 billion. Can countries afford to pay the mitigation and deal with the impact on populations? And what can we expect in America? 13 million Americans will be displaced in this century. And there are areas that are likely to be impacted. You can see them in blue and red. And of particular note is the Gulf Coast, where 2 hurricanes, Laura and Delta, have created storm surges the same area within a month. And look at the susceptible international cities at risk by population. Those in developing countries are in extreme danger. If parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where do the people go? And how will that impact cost for adaptation? And what happens for mitigation? Is it available, and who will pick up the cost? Right now, the number of climate-related events has been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. 2018 and 19 rank amongst the top 10 most expensive for overall losses. 160 billion in 2018, 140 billion in 2019. And in the US alone, climate-related costs in 2020 are estimated at 79 billion. And our California weather coming off the ocean is changing too. You remember this? 12,000 dry lightning strikes, starting over 500 fires. This kind of storm is more familiar to hot and humid climates nearer the equator and comes with rain. But this storm is delivering by the Pineapple Express, an atmospheric river coming across the Pacific. Let me locate you. There's Hawaii, and it's coming across from the lower left to the Silicon Valley on the upper right. This is an atmospheric river, and that's 2,300 kilometers long, and it delivers storms like the one we saw with dry lightning. Extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s all around the world. Here's what it's called, the rain bomb in Phoenix in 2016. It looks kind of familiar. It's an upside down atom bomb. And here's downtown New York in 2019. Amazing. And these warmer temperatures have an impact on the spread of diseases. Modern transportation and air travel play a significant part. We've seen this with COVID-19, but the potential range for many diseases expands as regions farther and farther towards the poles get warmer. This means there are more and more places where diseases like Zika can take root. The main mosquito that spreads Zika, the dengue and yellow fever, is now covering a wider range in a warmer, wetter world. In warmer temperatures, the virus incubates faster, mosquitoes breed more, and are able to transmit the disease longer. The health impact of the climate crisis are often overlooked, but will affect millions of people. And with COVID, we all have been shut down. At the same time, climate change, along with other factors like ecosystem loss, are contributing to the worst extinction event since the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. An estimated 5 million species will go extinct by the end of this century. So we've got to understand this environmental crisis is like an overflowing tub. We have to do more than just turn off the faucet. That's the net zero target for the Paris Accord. We have to do mitigation, aggressively address the crisis as they arise. Adaptation, find ways to live with a shifting environment. But we also must empty the tub from the current unsustainable CO2 levels at 470 parts per million to below 300 parts per million. That means restoration, bringing down CO2 levels through land and ocean sinks, natural sequestration. We can't count on technology to do it all. We need to make changes in the way we manage our land and our oceans. We're stuck in kind of this feedback loop. Temperatures rise, heat is trapped, and temperatures rise again. We need to stop the loop. We need to reverse the feedback and restore our world. The Dalai Lama and Greta Thunberg did a virtual conversation recently sponsored by Climate Emergency Feedback Loops. So if you have an opportunity, check out the associated videos on forest, permafrost, atmosphere, and the albedo effect. I'll share the link with you at the end of the meeting. I'll send it off to Bob. We're running out of room to make the shift to a sustainable world. According to recent research, there's only 220 billion tons of room left to stay below the 2 degrees Celsius limit of the Paris Accord. And there are lots of sources to fill that basket. What's happening with the permafrost in the Arctic is scary. So we have to take some kind of action. If you look at what's going on in the Arctic, the red and the kind of yellowish green shows you where the permafrost is actually now beginning to or has broken apart and had been releasing the methane. The yellow is in the process of releasing. This is a very scary time right now in the Arctic. So we clearly need to change, and it's possible. We have the resources and the know-how: solar, wind, nuclear. There's enough solar energy reaching Earth every hour to fill all the world's needs for a full year. Across the world, solar is leapfrogging old technologies. In many places where there's no electric grid, we're seeing consumers and businesses installing solar panels and making a business out of it. And did you know that global wind could supply worldwide electricity consumption 40 times over? And did you know that nuclear energy at scale, with safety and other innovations currently being supported by people like Bill Gates, can deliver 4 million times the energy of coal and gas without producing greenhouse gases? We're a ways from the upgrade to nuclear, but it is happening. And the store of the waste from all of the nuclear activity currently represents the equivalent of a small, very small building. And all the costs for existing new renewable technologies are falling, and they're falling rapidly. And we're beginning to listen to nature on how to restore the planet by sequestering carbon through better management of our forests, replenishing our farmlands and coastlines. At the same time that we're inventing and enhancing methods to capture carbon and sequester it in the ground. We can't count on all of these technologies, but it is happening. So the question is, are we willing to manage the transition to a sustainable world? There are 3 steps to make this transition. 1, we talked about mitigation, adaptation, and restoration. Accept where we are, take action, and address the costs. 2, shift subsidies, move quickly to support renewables and find ways, perhaps taxation, to make investment in fossil fuels less attractive. And 3, establish a renewable environment, concurrently creating a sustainable future. We are taking action. The Paris Accord is now at full strength, with every nation agreeing to phase down greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by the middle of the century. That's the good news. The bad news? Countries are falling behind on the Paris Accord. Interestingly, the first 75 countries to report about their production and their plans, they were supposed to get to 2030 with a 45% reduction. And the report from the first 75 countries says that they'll get to 2030 with a 5% reduction on 2010 levels. But news alert, Biden announced yesterday that the world leaders in the US targeting 52% greenhouse gas reductions over the 2005 levels by 2030. So it seems like we're making progress. China said that they would get to peak production use of coal and other non-renewables by 2040, and they would target 2060 to have reductions. Sorry, that's not good news. But climate action isn't just about what countries are doing. We're seeing states, provinces, cities, universities, corporations, nonprofits commit to reducing emissions. 24 states, representing well over half of American people, are already going farther than required by the Paris Accord. California, as an example, is taking action with a target of 2030 rather than 2050, bringing it in close, according to Governor Newsom. And multiple cities are committing to 100% renewable energy. Even though small, there are a few that have already arrived. And some of the world's biggest companies have pledged to reach net zero carbon emissions by mid-century. Walmart's a good example of a company taking action to address the climate crisis. They're one of the largest installers and purchasers of solar power in the country. They are undertaking a massive emission reduction effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in their supply chain by 1 billion tons by 2030. And oversight is being handled by environmental advocacy groups. Now, if only we could see EV trucks. Well, and we're seeing them. And they're close to being available. There's a huge race on to see who can get to the market first. So overall progress is being made, but both here in the US and internationally, it's slow. But delay has risk, and principally among that is the increased resistance based on economic concerns. Countries were expected to propose new greenhouse gas reduction commitments, and financing for less developed countries was due to be proposed. Both of these are critical to global success in this race. Meanwhile, 70% of US voters fully support moving to 100% renewable electricity. Yet we're not moving fast enough to meet our global targets by 2050. That's why we can be pleased with Biden looking at 2030 as a key stepping stone. We must develop the political will to set the rules of the road for polluters through standards and holding polluters to account. But we can't do this unless we shift our thinking. Perception is reality. That's become very clear in this ongoing study. Yale University has been studying the perception about the climate crisis for the last 10 years. Here are some of the results from 2020 survey of the country based on county level activity and perception. Now, you have to look at this in relationship to the dark spots mean that they have a high level of receptivity, the light spots low level, and if it gets down to the bottom there where it's dark blue, that means no reception. So climate change is happening, 72%, but you can see in the middle of the country that's not true. Caused by humans, 55%, but you can see in the middle of the country, not accepted, not highly accepted. Will harm me personally, 43%. This amazes me. People see the issue, but don't think it's going to impact them. Harms future generations, 71%. That's good. We're seeing that there is a potential. We need to do something for our future generations. We need to regulate CO2, 75%. Congress needs to do more, 60%. And citizens can do more, 64%. This is very interesting, but the sad part to me is in the last 5 years, these numbers have moved almost not at all. The core issue is economic. Governments around the world continue to subsidize fossil fuels. After-tax subsidies have not stopped growing. The last few years have seen increases, opening new fields to drilling in the US and Russia and building new coal plants in China. Fossil fuels now represent $6 trillion annually in subsidies. It's left over from the World War II subsidies that were set up and a lack of action by most governments. On the other hand, renewable subsidies for innovation and development are only around 1.2 trillion. So here's the S&P 500, Standard & Poor's, one of the most commonly used stock indexes. And here's how it's been going up over the last decade. And here's the energy sector, not a good investment. So in fact, we are beginning to take market reaction and action that will make a difference if we actually continue to do that. If you look at the stock market returns in the clean energy sector, they're going up 60% in the last 3.5 years. And in fossil fuel companies, they've gone down 12% in the same period. And here's the overall value of ExxonMobil. It was at one point the most well-known and recognized and valued company. And here's the value of Tesla, just surpassing ExxonMobil. A lot of these companies now are coming to understand that they're facing a real crisis. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, could limit carbon emissions through cap and trade, where the government sets limits and companies trade to offset their carbon footprint or to make money from their green status, or a simple tax on carbon emissions based on pollution. California put a price on carbon in 2013 and emissions declined 8%. Today, the program manages 85% of the carbon pollution, the most of any policy in the world. But the system has plenty of slack due to low prices and high levels of pollution permits. The average cost per ton of emissions globally is way too low at $2 per ton, when according to the IMF, it needs to be more than $35 a ton to make a difference. So clearly people are seeing the issue and they want to take action. They're demonstrating, they're making demands at the ballot box because legislation and regulation are the key to successful transition. And we're still not seeing a rapid shift in economic support for sustainable development. With education, perhaps we can balance the demands of nature, our little blue marble, support humankind, and rethink what is appropriate growth. But how do we overcome our cultural instinct to focus on acquisition and ownership? That is detrimental to our environment and most vulnerable, and those most vulnerable among us. Excuse me. Is there a sustainable model that we can consider as we move forward? The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals can provide a map for countries and individuals who want to support a new way of looking at the world. Interestingly, if you didn't know, Rotary is the only NGO with a seat in the US UN General Assembly. So individuals are powerful. You can be counted on to take action. You need to review your community's clean energy plan. If there isn't one, help build it. Then take action to support the county plan, and then go beyond. Consider working with data coming from Project Drawdown. It's a coalition of scientists, researchers, and advisors from all over the world with a goal of providing 100 solutions to reverse global warming. Buy the Drawdown book, download the free Drawdown review, and help direct projects and actions in your community. Here's a Drawdown overview of their research into solutions. I know it looks a little complicated, but each solution is shown a target reduction of 2 degrees Celsius, that's the inner circle, or 1.5 degrees, that's the outer circle. And Drawdown has identified actions that can be taken in each one of these areas. They have a lot of information that's worth pursuing, easy to get a hold of on their website. So here's a few projects that you could think about. There's lots of different things that you can undertake. One of the ones that I love is doing an assessment of your carbon footprint, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But let me give you an idea of an example project, EV ride drive. It's important because electric CO2 emissions are almost nil versus gas, hybrid, and hybrid plug-ins. Partner with other environmental groups, arrange an EV sales organization like Tesla, Ford, GM, or VW, or just depend on EV drivers. They love to tell their story. Get support from local government based on the clean energy plan. It's fun and it's not hard to put together. And what's interesting, a recent study of 4,000 visitors to ride drive events showed that 98% of them said that they would either buy or plan to buy or own already an EV car. And there are plenty of other resources. Take time to do a short, long form carbon footprint. The best short form is the gold standard. And we've been partnering with Bright Action called We Renew. They do an excellent and detailed assessment. You can go to their website, brightaction.app, and input your zip code, and you'll access local assessments with potentially 50 to 75 suggested actions that you can take. And businesses and organizations can seek green certification based on UN Sustainable Development Goals, or through a myriad of green certification programs in almost every country and US state. There are no one that is the best. Each of them fits the needs of the local community, so research is available. And again, I'm going to put all of this into an email I'll send to Bob. So consider being responsible when you travel, whether for business or pleasure. I'm not going to go into all of these services, but it's important to think in terms of what is your carbon footprint on a trip? I'm taking a trip to upstate New York at the end of this next month, and I've already paid for my carbon footprint for my air travel, my car, my meals, and my lodging. It's easy to do. It's also good to think about whether or not you're putting money into the hands of the local community when you travel, especially internationally, or whether you're putting money into a tourism group that is located in the UK or in the United States, or a hotel chain that is located in headquarters in the Cayman Islands. You need to think about that. And these are opportunities, these organizations are opportunities to make that work well for you. So we can overcome resistance by deciding on our focus, maintain the existing model, or move to a new paradigm. There are numerous cultural and political directions we need to consider. And there are plenty of ways for us to do that. The United Nations push for sustainable development, actions like the Assisi Manifesto, where climate change is an opportunity to address global inequities. Even the Pope has come out with an encyclical that recently that addresses inequality and balanced, thoughtful development. And no matter what we do, green legislation is a must in the near term. We're in the midst of a crisis. We need to take action, and we need to see where we fit into that process. So let me leave you with the words of Carl Sagan regarding our blue marble.
Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
So use your voice, use your vote, use your choices in the marketplace, and speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Why? Because your world depends on it. We all need your help to make this work. Thank you. So I'm going to take questions or comments. Let me so Bob, if you can open it up. You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say a very profound presentation, John. Thank you very much. And so this will conclude the recorded portion of our coffee chat.